All right. Hello, everybody. This is my first video of my new grand experiment. We're going to see how it goes. So I'm just inviting people on, both men and women. If you're watching this video and you'd really like the idea of coming on and doing a video with me, send me a private message and we can talk. But this is Brenda. She is the first volunteer to have a chat with me. So that's pretty exciting. And you have a few questions for me.
I do. So my first question, and I want to start off with this, is so you talk a lot about devotion. And in some of the other posts I've noticed there's been some mention of monogamy. So what I wanted to ask you was, is there a difference between devotion and monogamy? Can devotion lead to monogamy? But really what I want to know is, what's the difference? Is there a difference between devotion and monogamy? How does that work for a man? A dominant man.
Yeah, so it's a great question, and there's a huge difference. So I'll try my best to explain. First of all, I'll use a personal example because that's usually the best way to go. So I married my wife. Obviously, we're married, and we got married quite quickly, and I really loved her when I married her a year into our relationship, and for the first few years of our marriage, right? But I was not devoted to her. Right. I was very committed to her in the sense that, I was never going to cheat on her. I cared about her quite a lot. I loved her, but it was not a feeling of devotion. So that's something entirely different. You can have a monogamous relationship without devotion. It would be pretty hard to have you can't have a non-monogamous relationship and be like fully devoted to someone. You can be somewhat devoted, but there's no way you're going to be truly devoted. So what changed for me, like the difference is, you are like, as a man, I got just the feeling of it is you are, you feel a huge responsibility for your woman's heart, right? You care very deeply about it. It's like, if a woman's heart was like your own child or something, right? Like you would do basically anything for it. That's kind of the feeling. And a lot of men don't feel that sense of responsibility, right? There's a lot of men who it's like, I'll take care of me and you take care of you, as one example, or a lot of men who want to be taken care of. That would be another example. But for a devoted masculine man, it's like, no, I want to take care of you. I want to cherish you. Like you are mine, and I, your needs are just as important as my own needs. Right. So that's kind of the feeling. And there's a lot, I would say the majority of relationships, but probably the vast majority of relationships, there is monogamy there, but there isn't devotion. Right. And the lack of devotion is because the relationship's completely depolarized. Right. Either both two androgynous people, or even worse, the woman is really in her masculine and the man is in his feminine.
Right. So one of the things that I know as a woman is that I resent very much being in my masculine in a relationship. I don't want to nag. I don't want to insist. I don't want to have to constantly be on my man at all, actually. And so what I really want to be is absolutely, as you say, radiant in my feminine. Like, I know that when I am radiant in my feminine, I thrive. And when I thrive, my man thrives. And when my man thrives, I thrive, right? Like, it just goes hand in hand. So how can I help in being, okay. So how do you, because I don't think that you can be, to me, monogamy can be very restrictive if you think of it without the devotion. Mm-hmm. To me, the devotion makes monogamy significantly easier, right? So I don't feel the need, like if I'm speaking as a woman, right? I don't feel the need to look at another man, right? If I am in my feminine entirely and devoted to my man, giving myself to my man, submitting to my dominant man. So what else, or what do I, how would a woman encourage that devotion so that the monogamy is easier? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And of course, it's the, like, what you're essentially communicating is the exact same thing with men as well, right? Like, it is the easiest, I believe it's the easiest thing in the world for a healthy masculine man to be monogamous to a woman who is in a radiance all the time, right? It's like, it's second nature. It's like a fish swimming in water. Why wouldn't you want to be monogamous with her? And it's the, when a woman's not, or when a man's not in his devoted masculine, that's when it's like, oh, like porn seems more interesting and other people start to seem more interesting. And it's a lot harder to feel that, true commitment and lack of interest in anybody else. So I want to briefly talk about the whole radiance piece. I think that there is often a lot of misunderstanding with women with the word radiance. I think it can often be used in the same kind of way that like positive thinking is used in the spiritual community, where it's just like, oh, I just got to be like radiant all the time. I'm just going to be radiant. I'm just going to be like so happy and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, it's a bypass for truly really being in your feminine, right? You can't just will yourself into being really happy all the time. So I think of radiance more as just like your heart is always exposed, and you're always you're always emotionally responsible all the time, right? So it doesn't mean that you can't feel and express negative feelings. And I've said this before. I think a woman's negative feelings, like her sadness and insecurity and neediness and shame, are just as beautiful as feeling happy and excited and joyful and all of those feelings, right? Like, to me, it's like, that's all fucking beautiful. And that is all going to inspire a man's devotion, right? Not just her happiness and gratitude and all that stuff, but also her sadness, also her shame, also her even neediness and insecurity when it's expressed responsibly, right? So it's not about trying to get yourself into some kind of positive state or anything like that. It's about trying to get real as fuck with yourself and how you feel, and just being able to express that all the time.
So basically what you're saying is that I shouldn't be afraid to express. So you've talked before about like walking on eggshells, right? Which is a feeling I'm very familiar with. And I don't want to walk on eggshells. I want to express, but how do you express without putting pressure? Because I don't want to put pressure. I just want to express, right? And hopefully my needs will be met. Like, how would a woman approach? So I want to get to then like the boundaries part, because I can express and I can share, but if my needs aren't being met and I don't want to nag, right? Because then that's where the boundaries comes in, right? Like, how do you express the boundaries, being emotionally responsible and not nag or whine or even explode later on because things have gone so far? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think I do, and I'll give you an answer. And if you need if I'm not totally clear, then we can go further into it. So, and this is one of the really big pieces that we talk about in my Radiant Academy, right? I'm gonna give you an overview of it, because so many women do have issues with this, right? They have issues with walking back their submission. They have issues with walking away from an entire relationship. They have issues with walking away from a situation, like an interaction with a man, right? And what I teach, which is very controversial for a lot of women, is I say, like, don't ever assert boundaries with a man, right? Unless like he's raping you or something. But other than that, there's no need to assert boundaries, as in like, hey, you're doing this, like, stop doing this. Or like, please stop doing this, or something like that, right? That is 100% masculine energy. Even if it's said in the most respectful way possible, it's going to be received as disrespect to a man. There's a good chance that he's going to revert into a child whenever a woman does it, because it's essentially being like his mother, right? And I think a lot of women can relate to this. And you know, even a really mature man, like it will take some amount of effort to stay centered when a woman does that and enforces boundaries in that kind of way, because it's like, to him, it's a really strong feeling of irritation. Like, my woman is trying, what the message his body is giving him is, my woman is trying to lead, right? She's depolarizing things. She's disrespecting me as the man. That's essentially on a and this isn't a wounding. This is instinctual programming. There might be wounding on top of it that makes him go totally nuts, but on a basic level, that's his body saying, oh shit, like, something's wrong here, right? Something's wrong here. She's trying to lead this dynamic. And so, and more importantly than that, like, let's just talk about you as a woman and what you really need. What you ultimately need deep down isn't a man who respects where you assert your boundaries and you respect those boundaries. It's where you express your feelings and your man is so devoted to you that he sets his own boundaries for himself. He's like, oh, I don't want to make my woman feel bad. I care about her feelings. I care about her heart just as much as I care about my own heart and my own feelings. I'm going to set this boundary for myself so that she doesn't feel this bad feeling anymore, right? And so it's when the boundaries are crossed, it's the most important time for a woman to get really vulnerable. And, you know, I always teach the easiest way to be vulnerable is start with an I feel statement. I feel X, right? I feel sad, or I feel angry, or whatever it is. And you're not trying, this is the key, you're not trying to control him, right? You're not, because you could express that feeling with that kind of assertive energy, like I feel sad right now, and you're like trying to assert yourself and stop him from doing that. But that's the wrong energy. It's essentially asserting a boundary with feminine language, right? But it's not like that. It's like, here's my heart, it feels really bad right now, and you do with whatever you want with it, right? That's essentially what it is. And it's that what that is a huge level of trust that you're giving him, like or faith that he's going to he's going to care about you, right? That you don't have to control anything. You don't ever have to assert yourself, because you know that he cares and that he'll want to do something. So that's the first part of it. And then the second part of it is when he doesn't actually, when he's an asshole with it, right? Where he's just being critical, or he's disrespecting you in some way. He's like, no, like, we're doing this anyway. And sometimes it is good to submit to something, even when, you know, you're feeling scared, for example. There's sometimes it's appropriate to submit to something. And then there's times where it's definitely not appropriate to submit to things, right? And that's something you have to have your own heart and decide for yourself. But if it's something where it's like, I just really feel bad about this, and I know if I submit to this, or if I continue to stay exposed to this, I'm going to be dishonoring myself, right? I'm going to be dishonoring myself, and that's not going to feel good, and I don't want to do that. That's when you've got to walk away. And you can walk away from the situation. You can walk away from walk your submission back by like not doing the thing. It's like, I feel really uncomfortable and I'm not going to do it. Or sometimes it's going to mean walking away from the entire relationship. And ultimately, that is what needs to happen if a man is demonstrating over and over again that he doesn't care about your heart and doesn't consider you and your feelings as an equal to him, right? Because you're not going to try to control things. You're not going to bother, like a woman who really respects herself isn't going to even bother asserting herself by asserting boundaries. It's like, I deserve fucking better than this to have to assert my boundaries with a man. I'm just going to leave because I need a man that is going to make his own boundaries.
Yeah, the level of confidence, and you've touched on this in some of your other posts, like the idea of self-worth and how that really, like you work on that. The level of confidence, I feel like, I mean, I've done it before, and I mentioned this to you earlier, you know, there's the pain of asserting that boundary, right? Like of just being like, okay, if you don't want to take care of my heart, then I guess I got to bounce, right? And that's a big statement. That's a big statement. And then what does a man do with that, right? Like giving, I guess that's what I'm struggling with, you know, because I am tired of, I've experienced it before where I just got tired of just like saying things in a nice way. And then just feeling like, you know what, like I can't continue saying things in a nice way. There's no need for me to say these things in a nice way. You know, I don't even want to say these things in a nice way. I know how to compromise. Here's the thing is that I know how to compromise. So if my man makes a decision that I don't necessarily agree with, right? What I'm going to do as a woman, if I don't agree with it, but I still want to submit, is make sure that whatever decision he comes up with, whatever decision he takes, I'm going to make sure that that decision has the best outcome as possible so that we can both benefit. That's the way I see it. That's the way I see submission. That even if I don't agree and it doesn't necessarily violate my integrity, my morals, my values, I can go along as long as, I'm not even going to put it as long as, I can totally go along because I know I want to be supportive and I want the best for us. And even if it turns out to be a crap decision, at least I know I was supportive. At least I know I did my part, you know, as that submissive woman, right? But it's when the morals, the integrity, the honor that I should have for myself, it's like, when I get put on the spot like that, it's where I will say I violated for myself, you know, and that's messed up. I've done that in the past and it just doesn't work. It just does not work, you know? So what you're saying makes sense. Yeah, what you're saying makes sense. I completely resonate with that.
And a woman can feel that, right? Like there's a big difference between, you know, you're choosing to submit to something, even where it's like, this decision is going to suck balls for everybody. But it's like, you're making that choice because it's like, well, he'll end up learning from it, right? And I trust that he's going to learn from it. And it's not really that big a deal. And, you know, you can always express how you feel afterwards if it ends like you know, it was a negative experience for you. Right. And it's just like, because that like a man needs that, right? A man literally does need to make those mistakes, and he needs to know and feel how he hurt his woman in some way for him to reflect on those mistakes and make a lot less of them in the future. Right. So there's that form of submission, which I fully support. And then, yeah, there's that other kind of submission where it's like, if I do this, I know I've dishonored myself in some way. I've dishonored my heart. I will feel bad, and I'm doing it for the wrong reasons too, right? Like making that full yes choice to submit to something, even though you're pretty sure it's going to go badly. And sometimes it'll go good. Like sometimes your man will actually really surprise you. And I've done that, and I've also made bad choices as well, right, in my relationship. But there's a difference between that where it's a full yes choice and making that choice where it's like, I'm like, you're doing it all for the wrong reasons. It's like either to please or because you're just, you know, you're tired of, like, you don't want to resist, right? It's just like, or it's walking on eggshells and you just don't want to deal with the fallout of actually speaking up for yourself, actually expressing yourself. And that's what I encourage women never to do, even the small stuff. Right? Even if it was just a really small form of submission, it's still dishonoring your heart when you're doing it for the wrong reasons.
Talk to me more about protecting your heart. Like how can you be vulnerable and still protect your heart? If that makes sense.
You protect your heart by not keeping it open when a man isn't devoted to it, when he's not, or when he's abusive to it in any kind of way, right? So it's like you can always, that's when you walk away from situations. It's like it's a matter of not staying exposed to something that is hurting you in some kind of way. It's like there, because being in your feminine, you know, you're not trying to, it's not even about trying. It's not about trying at all, right? If it's taking effort, then there's something wrong with the interaction itself. It's more just like, oh, I feel good right now in this moment, and you know, like my man is leading me and I can open up and feel more safe. And if you're feeling unsafe, it's just like, I feel anxious right now and I'm going to be by myself. I'm going to go by myself. And you deal with that stuff on your own, and your man has to figure out how to, essentially, he has to realize that if he's going to have you in his life at all, and you know, have a happy woman, he needs to learn how to care about you just as much as he cares about himself.
That's interesting, because they always say, and I kind of find it to be a joke, not a joke, but it's meant to be derogatory towards men when they say a happy wife, happy life, you know, as if serving a woman is like this, you know. I don't see serving my man as, okay, I don't see it that way. I find it to be one of the more beautiful things that I can do to serve my man. It makes me happy to serve my man. So happy wife, happy life does not have to be this huge burden. Just, I don't know if there's an equivalent for the husband, like a phrase that's similar, but yeah, I mean, what you're saying makes sense, and I appreciate that. You know, the setting of the boundaries, but setting of the boundaries just being, okay, I don't feel safe, and so it is what it is. That's really, that's where it's at. It is what it is, and accepting that as a woman.
So you're accepting which part?
Accepting when I'm safe and accepting when I'm not safe, meaning accepting when I'm safe. And so therefore I continue to follow his leadership and his guidance as the man in my life. And I continue to walk down that path, right? Yeah. I trust and I believe in my man, and I accept his guidance and I accept his leadership when he's devoted to me. And if that doesn't come, then I accept that as well, right? And so accepting that means, if I'm honoring myself and that devotion doesn't come, the leadership is not present, or he's trying to lead me to something else, then just turning away. Like, and
well, expressing feelings first.
Expressing feelings first. Yes, yeah. Yes.
Yeah, because that's where a lot of women will go wrong, right? Is they don't speak up for themselves by expressing their feelings and doing it vulnerably, doing it responsibly. They'll either not express their feelings at all, or they'll take them out in a really immature and or abusive kind of way. And then the man doesn't know what to do, because we've got to be really honest about the situation with men today. Most men have no idea how to lead a relationship. They have like literally no idea. And the way that a man is really going to figure it out, unless they take, you know, my Dominant Academy course with Mark Binet, is they're going to need to learn from their woman, right? From her being emotionally responsible, being courageous, by being really vulnerable, so that he knows exactly how his behaviors are affecting her feelings moment to moment, right? And that's going to guide him into better and better leadership. But it's got to be her feelings, because if it's anything else, then it's probably a form of leadership, and then he can't become a better leader. He's just going to be submitting. He's going to be like submitting to try to become a better leader, and it's not going to work. It's actually just going to weaken him. He's just going to become a better slave.
Which that's not cool either. I like the idea of what you were talking about, like being emotionally responsible, because I've gone down the other line, which is just to exert like all types of masculinity, and thinking that was being emotionally responsible, and just it was totally destructive. Like I've gone down that path, and I was experimenting. I'll be honest, I was experimenting to see if I was going to get what it was that I needed. And that did not work at all, you know? And then I was like, all right, so if that doesn't work, then I need to come back to me. I need to come back to me, and I need to be emotionally responsible. I need to change my my way of thinking, the framework I was operating under, and like just completely dump that and just go back to being me. Just go back to being me. Just staying centered and being me. When I am emotionally responsible, I make good decisions. You know, I'm a healthier person. I'm a happier person, and everyone around me is the same way too. So I like the idea of being emotionally responsible, because when I wasn't, it was a pure disaster for everybody, right? Like it was a total mess. And when it was a total mess, the first step towards being emotionally responsible was admitting. I was like, yeah, that was totally messed up of me. Cannot be doing that anymore. But you can only be emotionally responsible to a point, right? Like if I've proven my emotional responsibility consistently, then I feel like that also needs to be met, right? Like, so I guess I'm asking, if I've taken on that emotional responsibility, what can a woman expect from a man? And quotation marks, because I don't even know about expectations anymore.
Yeah, the expectation thing is really tricky, because, you know, as soon as you actually start expecting things, then a man is all of a sudden energetically a slave to your expectations, right? And he's going to feel that. And on some level, he's going to be like, I don't want to do anything. I don't want to do anything for it, because that feels like submission, and that feels like a slave to a man. And so it's not so much about expectations. It's more about you just having this inner knowing that of what you deserve as a woman. You don't deserve it from him. You don't deserve it from any specific man. It's just you deserve it in your life from a man, and you don't want to settle for less. You need to feel good. You need to feel good as a woman in your heart. You need to feel secure. You need to feel loved. You need to feel cherished. You need to feel, you know, not taken advantage of, right? And if you're not feeling that way, then there's something that's wrong, and you're not getting what you deserve. And if you're expressing that fully, responsibly, and a man isn't interested in stepping up to make you feel, to feel good in a relationship, then the question is, why are you still in the relationship? Why are you settling for less than you deserve? And you know, stepping up into your masculine is certainly not going to work, right? And you know it's not going to work. It's never worked before. It's never worked in the history of the world to actually get what you want. Even if your man ends up doing what you want, it's still not what you need, because he's just becoming, you know, increasingly emasculated and being a slave. It's not. A woman ultimately needs a man's devotion. And the only way she can get his devotion is by him giving her his leadership, not his submission.
And I agree with that. One of the biggest turnoffs, I think, for me at least, is when a man submits. Like, I can't. It's a huge turnoff. And when you talk about men like expressing feelings, it's okay at first. Like, it's nice, it's sweet, it's lovely. And then after a while, it's like, dude, just stop. There needs to be action, like not words, you know? But I agree with that. Like, every woman deserves to honor her heart and to be with someone who honors her heart as well. You know, I know, what it is that I bring, I feel like I know my value. And I say I feel like because I've been in situations where I feel maybe that's been tested, but I feel like I know my value. I know what it is that I bring. I know what that full just expressing of feelings and how what it means to be met in that way looks like. But now just to embrace that fully again, right? And to not be afraid of that. And to trust that it will be met, you know, to trust that it will be met.
Yeah, just to have faith that it will be. Operate through life all the time, just having faith that things will work out for the best.
I like that. Yeah. I don't know if I had any more questions. I know that
that's okay. We're at 30 minutes, so that's kind of what the cutoff that I wanted to have anyway, the maximum time. So that's great. Last thing I will say is if any women out there are really resonating with this and you want a lot more and you really want to do the work to become radiantly feminine and know everything about how to inspire man's devotion and actually start doing the work to transform yourself to inspire man's devotion, then go to my website, relationshipofyourdreams.com, and book a call to find out if you're right for the Radiant Woman Academy. We didn't really talk much about, you know, what a man's doing, but any men that are watching this, same deal from my website for the Dominant Man Academy.
Right.
And because of course, men obviously want a woman who is submissive and respectful and vulnerable and radiant. And you need to play your part in leading her towards that, right? And providing that space for her to be that. And that's what we teach in the Dominant Man Academy. So that is pretty much it. Thank you so much for coming on and being the first person to do a live with me. This was great.
It was fun.
Yeah, it was awesome. And that's it. So everyone who's watching, hopefully you tune in for the next one.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brenda.